Here we go. I mean, we should be on any second now. And there I am. Here's my face.
Right. Here we go. I mean, we should be on any second now.
Okay.
There I am. Here's my face.
Let's see here. Let me just get my screen set up on this side.
Okay.
Oh. Ha! Sorry about that. Okay. Alright, guys. Sorry about that. Like I said, this is new stuff. I did not shave bald. I shaved down to stubble. Let's see. Hold on. Whiskey. Yep, I turned off the echo. Sorry about that. There's not going to be an echo. I just had a second window open to see how this was going. All right. So, first things first, most important, obviously, is the liquor. This is bourbon again. Again, from the 45th Parallel Distillery. Again, they are not a sponsor, though they could be. Whoops. Okay. Well, this is about to get a little interesting. All right, guys. So tonight is a Q&A, and I know there's an audio lag, and that's just built into Facebook stream or Facebook. It's built into YouTube streaming, and there's nothing I can do about that. So, without further ado, tonight. We're going to get going through a couple things, some preliminary stuff, and then I'm going to take some questions. They can be about the LoLsuit. They can be about the biggest problem, I guess. They can be about the trademark. They can be about general legal questions. We're just going to kind of open it up. They can be, I'm a free speech absolutist, right? So they can be about just about whatever you want, and I will probably answer them to the best of my ability, and hopefully it's not overly lacking. But here we go. So first to the biggest trademark in the universe. This paper was filed a couple days ago by the court itself, by the Patent Trademark Board, or the Trademark Board. And this is kind of where the case stands and where it will remain until the Trademark Board has rendered a decision. So this was filed by an attorney that works for the board, giving just a quick status update. So on January 9th, 2018, opposer filed a motion for summary judgment. That would be Dick. Dick filed a motion for summary judgment. The motion is timely pursuant to Trademark Rule 2.127E1. When a party timely files a potentially dispositive motion, the proceeding is suspended with respect to all matters not germane to the motion, and no party should file any paper which is not germane to the motion except as otherwise may be specified by a board order. See Trademark Rule 2.127D. Accordingly, as of the filing date of the motion for summary judgment, proceedings are suspended pending the disposition of the motion. Any paper filed during the pendency of this motion which is not germane thereto will be given no consideration. So now is not a good time to file anything. It is not a good time to file anything that is not in regards directly to the motion for summary judgment. Because it won't be considered. It'll actually effectively be ignored, and you may end up having to refile, and it's just cost and waste. Although Maddox is good at cost and waste. So, in addition to tolling the time to respond to the outstanding discovery request, suspension of proceedings tolls the time for parties to make required disclosures. So basically, they're putting a pause on everything pending the outcome of this summary judgment request. I do not know how fast the Trademark Board gets to these. I would suspect they should be ruling within about 30 days. Typically, these are done without a hearing because there aren't arguments to be made. That's the whole point of summary judgment, is to say the arguments have been made. They don't disagree on the facts. So all they disagree about is on the application of law, and we're asking you to rule in our favor on the facts in a way most favorable to the other guy. So the court will make a determination on this. In theory, either... I guess Dax's attorney has sent a memorandum in support of summary judgment along with his motion for summary judgment. George's attorney could file an opposition to summary judgment. I would think he would, but I don't know. Maybe he can't pay him. And if he were to do so, he should have to do it in enough time to allow Dick's lawyers to respond. Who knows whether they'll play the motion practice or not? It really doesn't. It doesn't matter what they're gonna do. We just have to wait and see. But until the court gets around to ruling on this, we will not see. We won't see anything specific coming out of this thing, and anything that does happen to get filed or popped in there should be regarded dubiously because it won't be considered until the summary judgment ruling comes out. Now, I have gotten a couple questions on if we will find out like what happens in the LoLsuit and what happens in this biggest trademark suit. Yes, as long as there are publicly available documents, out there, then I will definitely cover it. So as long as you watch here, you're going to find out whatever happens in these two suits. No matter what else happens on this channel, I'm going to see these through to the end because they bring me an endless amount of personal comedy, and me sharing that with you is just a benefit. So hopefully you continue to enjoy it, and even if you don't, I'm going to report it anyway because, like I said, it's funny to me. So that's the biggest trademark in the universe news. It's not a lot, right? This is just kind of what came out the other day, and I wanted to go ahead and cover it. Now, someone has brought up I believe they mentioned it on the Reddit, and I think they tagged me on the YouTube video from the LoLsuit, right? In Patreon's motion, they mention that Jane Doe didn't follow the rules for filing anonymously, and therefore she's not Jane Doe, she's Jessica Irene Blum. And since she did not, file accordingly, they think that her portion of the complaint should be dismissed with leave to refile under the appropriate process. And someone asked what that was. Again, not being a lawyer from New York, was not really aware of what the process was. And so I did a little research and found what the process was. So here's the footnote. Let's get started there. While Jane Doe may not be bound by the terms of use, she failed to follow the established procedures for bringing a case anonymously in New York, which require, among other things, a preliminary determination by an ex parte justice. Ex parte justice means that there's no hearing on this, and actually only one party tends to have much of a say, right? Like they're asking for the judge to rule without consulting the other party. That's ex parte. So then they have New York County Superior Court Civil Branch Protocol, Section K3. That sounds boring. Doe versus New York City Police Department is a little less boring. So we'll look at that one. And they talk about how this case outlines the actual procedures for doing it in the parenthetical outlines of procedures. I don't know what is up with highlighting on Adobe right now, but I'm going to blame someone else. Thus, if her claims survive dismissal on other grounds, they should be dismissed with leave to replead in order to ensure that she complies with those procedural requirements. Now, of course, this is a big if, right? Her claims, and this is the funny thing. They raise these as if she's a defendant at all situated in the same way Maddox is. But Jessica Irene Blum doesn't allege much of anything against her. There's like one or two causes of action where she even comes close to qualifying. And I mean, obviously, complete failure to state a claim, So all of that doesn't matter. But there's only one or two causes of actions where she's even alleged to be involved. The rest of them all involve Maddox, and even the ones where she's alleged to be involved focused on Maddox. Okay, so anyway, here's the case. It's John Doe, this was a man, versus New York City Police Department, and this is where the court discusses the process by which a person can go ahead and proceed anonymously. It is okay to file an anonymous complaint, but to file an anonymous complaint, you must ask the court's permission. So that's how some of this stuff goes. So here we are. Here we start. There's little case law on how the use of anonymous captions. First Department has held that a party will be permitted to proceed anonymously upon alleging that the matter implicates, quote, a privacy right so substantial as to outweigh the customary and constitutionally embedded presumption of openness in judicial proceedings. So the plaintiff or defendant, whoever's requesting anonymity, must be basically put in such a danger of whatever sort that they are, telling the court to override the Constitution. They're going to override the Constitution and the protections for everybody else in the interest of themselves. So, they're not going to do this very often. There are times where this is done automatically, at least in Minnesota, and I would assume in other states, and I know it's done federally, is when minors are involved and they're not being tried as adults. The minors are typically represented by just initials of some sort. So minors are protected kind of by default because they don't have the right to consent to the use of their name. So the court doesn't want to go ahead and presume that there's that they should have any say in it at all. If they can't consent, then they can't presume the consent that comes along with public disclosure. Okay. So the cases in which the court has permitted a party to proceed by pseudonym involve drastic circumstances. John Doe number 1, plaintiffs not permitted to proceed by pseudonym in a case alleging trespass to chattel. I did not print these off. Most of the parentheticals are self-explanatory and some are rather hilarious. But in this one is wholly boring. It seems like basically someone stole someone's phone and dialed a bunch of numbers that don't exist. So they proceeded with a claim of trespass to chattel, which is trespass to property. Or if you're pre-Civil War, it could mean trespass to people if they're of a certain descent and you own them. But yes, trespass to chattel would be utilizing someone else's property for your own uses without their permission. Very uninteresting. The court did not allow him to proceed under the pseudonym. I don't know if he refiled under his actual name. Doesn't matter. Next one is John Doe versus New York University. The plaintiffs were permitted to proceed by pseudonym in civil sexual assault case. So this was NYU was taking information about sexual assault victims. They were publishing the information in, in some sort of campus newsletter or something like that. And then actually a newspaper went ahead and picked up the story, and they wanted to report not only the sexual assault allegations and the injuries, but they wanted to report the names of the victims. And so the people suing here are the actual victims. They did succeed in proceeding anonymously. However, they did not succeed in having the court records sealed. So, sexual assault victims, that's pretty egregious and personal. That's the type of stuff that the court wants to go ahead and protect people from. The next one. This one's good, right? Stevens. Plaintiff who alleged that she contracted anal herpes from her boyfriend permitted to proceed under a pseudonym due to the deeply personal and sensitive subject matter. And I bet those anal herpes were deeply sensitive, right? Maybe this was, Jessica Irene Blum. I don't know. Since they got to proceed anonymously, maybe it was her. there's a question in the chat that I must address from Anthony Melchiori. Hopefully I got that right. What's your favorite Jell-O? I hate Jell-O. And I'll digress for a minute to discuss this. I went to a daycare when I was a youngster, right? I went to a daycare in Houston, Texas, called America's Choice Daycare. If you look it up, you're about a mile from the house where I grew up. It's not the best area of Houston, and it certainly wasn't in the 80s. But I went there. It was great. But here's what they did, right? Among many other things. First of all, I have a litany of offenses against this place. They stole my Transformers. They would yell at us and tell us to shut up. We were like, preschool kids and stuff. And my teacher was a woman by the name of Miss Gwen, who later went on to become the principal of that place when I went back by there. So that shows you the comic, misalignment of everything. My sister also went there when she was in first grade, and they showed the first grade kids Cujo by Stephen King and also Prince's Purple Rain. They had those on for videos for the first graders because, why not, I guess. And then what they did to me was they force-fed me Jell-O. Until I vomited on myself, right? I was probably, 4 or 5 years old. And they forced me to eat the Jell-O for my snack, which I had just not wanted. And since then, I can't eat Jell-O. So I apologize for not liking Jell-O. I have tried it several times in my adulthood because my kids like Jell-O because, so does everybody. My wife likes Jell-O. My extended family is and in-laws are, fairly Norwegian, so pretty much everything that should be lettuce, like a salad, is actually Jell-O of some sort or another. I can't do it. I can't do it. Jell-O, jelly beans, stuff like that, don't like them. Can't stand it. Something about the texture. It's not the taste. But that's my story. The only good thing that came out of that daycare was I did get to meet Chuck Norris because of it, and that's a story for another day. Okay, so another one. Anonymous versus anonymous. Parties request to proceed anonymously. Granted an assault case on the grounds that the defendant cafeteria owner might not receive a fair trial due to likelihood of media coverage. Doe versus Kidd. So this is basketball player Kidd. Jason Kidd. I'm not a sports, so please don't yell at me too much about that. I think it's Jason Kidd, right? Suspension on assault of plaintiff's identity unwarranted in assault and battery action brought against famous basketball player who alleged that the basketball player grabbed plaintiff's buttocks and crotch area. Plaintiff's voluntarily identification of defendant in her pleadings and to the press undermined her claimed need to protect her privacy and identity. So since she went to the press and in her pleadings named him prior to getting the anonymity approved by the court, that undermined her necessity to remain private. And going to the media is your first problem when you're requesting anonymity. Real quick, lobsters with crabs, potentially. I don't know yet. I'll have to see if there's something interesting in there, like for me to cover, that's beyond me just going through conspiracy stuff. Not saying there is not a conspiracy. There's lots of questions about that case and how they've handled it, but I don't know if it's up my alley or not. So I'll be looking into it for sure. But I've got a lot of other stuff that I'm definitely going to cover that kind of fits me for sure. And if that does, maybe it will. We'll see. Stay tuned. So this is boring. Here's the deal. Here's the way this goes. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so those are some cases where proceeding anonymously has succeeded or failed based on some reasons that we covered. But here's where the test is, right in this paragraph. So I'm going to go through this real quick. The court first turns to the issue of whether petitioner may proceed under an anonymous caption with a Doe pseudonym. The parties do not dispute that petitioner did not follow the proper procedure under the rules of the Supreme Court, Civil Branch, New York County, to commence an action claimed to be confidential with an anonymous caption. Petitioner should have named the real parties in the caption of an order to show cause with a temporary restraining order, seeking an anonymous caption and sealing the order. Okay, so this is the procedural grounds. They wanted the lawyers to put the caption in, request a temporary restraining order on the court from releasing the name, and then go ahead and put a motion to show cause, or an order to show cause, and then the other party would then have to show cause as to why they would not proceed anonymously. So in their motion to show cause, they would say, this person is not a public figure. The injuries are extremely sensitive. It would submit this person to, shame and embarrassment, and therefore we need to go ahead and protect their identity. That's how it would work. Okay. So the papers should have been submitted to the ex parte office for determination of the temporary restraining order by an ex parte justice. So again, this would be done typically without consulting the other party until unless the court had any questions to enforce the order to show cause, right? Or to bring about an order to show cause. So if they find out that on the face of it, everything is fine and complies with what their standard of anonymity would be, then it's granted. This allows a matter to proceed anonymously until the return date on the order to show cause, at which time respondents would have an opportunity to explain why confidentiality should not be continued. So, yeah, there you go. That's it. Should Jessica Irene Blum be allowed to proceed anonymously in this action? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is no reason for anonymity. Personally, I get it. I get why anyone would want to proceed anonymously in this stuff. But I said from the get-go, I'm pretty sure Maddox tried to include her anonymously to attempt to prejudice the judge and the clerks reading the document by implying that she was in such grave danger to public scrutiny that trying to prejudice them in the idea that she's definitely being harassed, and she's so harassed that she needs to be anonymous. Any judge who looks at this is going to say, wait, she's got a public Twitter profile, she's an online persona, she appears on Maddox's streams, everybody knows who this is, who's involved in this case, or who would even care about Maddox, so they're definitely going to know who Jessica Irene Blum is. Jessica Irene Blum is a trade show model that is dating Maddox. At least we think so. Either that or he's paying her to say so. I'm pretty sure Maddox has never actually dated anybody, but, we'll find out. I got a question here. Rekieta law with 80s girl redacted from the restraining order. Would that mean that they've gone through the court and officially asked for anonymity? No. I don't think so. There's a big difference here with 80s Girl and Jessica Blum. 80s Girl isn't a party to the action. And 80s Girl has an effective and ongoing restraining order in California. So by going through and redacting her name, she's not named in the proceeding, and the court would have an interest in protecting the identity of someone from another forum with an active restraining order against them. I don't know that it's proper, but it's also not material to the case, and I don't know that there's a public right to see a non-party's name in an ongoing proceeding. We're getting into fishier legal territory there, and there's no compelling interest for the court to have the name disclosed. So I think since they've gone through and redacted the name of 80s Girl, they're probably just fine in doing that. Again, she's not a party to the action. She's not making claims to anyone. She hasn't consented to be brought into this, and there's an active restraining order against one of the in effect against one of the parties. So the court probably is not going to have any issue with keeping her name private. There's no need for the for the people to bring her name, or for people to be able to see her name. So housekeeping, that's what we've got for the LoLsuit. That's what we've got for the biggest trademark. I don't think we're going to see much else in the LoLsuit for a little while. The current disposition is twofold. First, the LoLsuit has been requested to be removed to commercial court, which I talked about in the last stream. And basically, that puts it in an environment of people who specialize in commercial actions. It speeds up the process. And it gets, the most important thing for Dick and his legal team and all the defendants is that it gets these guys in front of a judge who rules on the same stuff every day. Every day. So, that's how that goes. We're not going to... Yeah, we've got to wait to see if the court wants to remove it to the commercial division. The second part of that is that, they've made their motions for dismissal. And so once the court decides whether this belongs in the current civil court or whether it belongs in the commercial court, we should see a ruling very shortly after that on the dismissals and whether they go through as to any or all of the parties. I suspect strongly that everyone will be dismissed. I think this will be completely dismissed. It will be interesting to see if fees are awarded. I don't know. I don't know if fees are going to be awarded or not. It's kind of a tricky question. I've heard New York is a tough state to win fees, so I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. But if fees are awarded, mind you, these guys have each produced, we've gotten 3 25-plus page documents, plus other affidavits. All of this stuff costs a fortune to put together. There's no discounts when you're asking for fees from the other party. So we've got the potential for actually a big judgment against Maddox. But if anyone is not dismissed, I would suspect it would be Dick would not be dismissed against, just because the bulk of the evidence and accusations are levied against Dick. So if the court looks at this entirely in Maddox's favor, which they have to do in a motion to dismiss, they have to read the facts in the light most favorable to Maddox. If they do that, it's possible that they find that there's enough of a dispute to not rule for dismissal for Dick and then to allow it to proceed. And in that case, we'll see a full answer, and then we'll look at discovery, and then we'll look at having a trial or settling the case out of court. One of those things would happen. The other person I think they may not dismiss against is Asterios, just because he's within the forum. It weakens his position a little bit. A lot of the accusations are against him, not the bulk like they are against Dick, but he has probably the second most, I guess. But even so, I think ultimately it's dismissed against everybody. We've got several people who have not even had an opportunity to be heard because they were not served. So, we'll see what happens there. But this leads me to my first question. And I think, let me check real quick, but this should be a question from Reddit. Yes, this is from Snake Jerusalem. He wasn't able to make the stream, but he popped in to ask if Maddox files for and is granted personal bankruptcy under Chapter 7, does this mean none of the defendants get to have their legal fees reimbursed? The short answer is possibly. I don't, the way law works, there's never a definite answer on some of this stuff. Chapter 7 used to be more accessible to people. It is less accessible now. I think they focus more around Chapter 13 bankruptcies for people, which does not dismiss debt the way the Chapter 7 does. Chapter 13 would discharge some types of debt, and then other types of debt would be basically re-amortized, or paid in some way, and there are less exemptions. I'm not a bankruptcy expert, right? Bankruptcy is just from a legal standpoint. Bankruptcy is a tough area of law because the person who's hiring you to do a bankruptcy is effectively bankrupt. So you have to get paid like in cash up front. And around here, bankrupt people are broke. Some states, bankrupt people aren't so broke because it simply means that their liabilities far outweigh their assets. And in certain states, you can have massive amounts of assets and then large amounts of liabilities and have a lot of actual cash that's disposable sitting around. I don't do bankruptcies. They don't come into my office very often. I would do one if someone needed one, but I don't really run into the opportunity that much. But wrapping myself back to the point, because I like to ramble, it's possible. It's possible that Maddox could have the judgments discharged in a bankruptcy action. That's something that people have the opportunity to do. You don't always get to collect on a judgment. A bankruptcy would ruin a normal person's credit. Maddox's credit, I imagine, is, he's got like 15 roommates, and his person in the next unit or whatever is a hippie who sprays him with a garden hose. I mean, come on. This guy's got credit like, like Kanye? I don't know. I don't even know the funny joke. It's so pathetically bad in reality that I can't even make fun of it. So, there's that. I don't know. Whether or not he files bankruptcy will depend largely on the judge, and then whether or not it gets discharged will depend largely on personal facts that I can't account for. I don't know Maddox well enough. I don't know Maddox at all, and I certainly don't know him well enough to, as far as his financial situation goes, to figure out where he might qualify. But I'll say, he has the potential for a lot of income. He doesn't utilize it effectively, but if, as his fans claim, his fans have claimed in personal messages to me that Maddox has tons of money, this lawsuit is nothing to him, and that, he can fund this forever and nothing's a problem. If that's the case, it'll be fun for Dick to win the money back from Maddox. So that'll be great. Maddox has, a book deal for Asterisk Whales, which isn't selling well, but it is still a book deal. That's an asset. It's not an asset for Simon & Schuster. Seems like a liability. He allegedly is working on a video game and a webcomic. If webcomics are real, I'm not even sure if webcomics exist. Or a physical comic book. I'm not sure either. But, if he's working on these projects and there are legitimate publishers behind it, he may have theoretical assets that would be open to plundering in a claim for for bankruptcy. So we'll see about that. But that's that question. I hope that helps Snake Jerusalem figure out what you're asking there. The short answer, like I said, is the legal answer, which is it depends, but probably not. Real quick, I gotta dive into something here. I got another comment from 688AS who says, "Hey, you're supposed to cut Lagavulin 12 with a splash of water, right? Lagavulin 16 would be just as harsh if it came at cask strength 2. One, I don't think it would be as harsh because it's got an extra 4 years of aging that tends to cut the harshness a little bit. Two, please don't ever tell me what I'm supposed to do. I don't do what I'm supposed to do because I'm a grown-ass man, have been for a long time, and I got tired of people telling me what I'm supposed to do a long time ago. Whether that's bosses, whether it's judges, whether it's the police, The best part of my profession is when people tell me what I'm supposed to do, I can tell them to eat a bullet, right? That's that. I don't care what other people think I should do. I don't like putting water in my scotch. I know for some scotches and whiskeys it brings out the flavor or changes the flavor profile. I don't like it personally. I just like my scotch neat. I like what the product that they put out. So I do appreciate the tip, and I have seen people cut it with water. It's not something I do, man. But yeah, I know you're just looking out, and no hard feelings or anything. But yeah, I just want to point out, quickest way to get me to do the opposite is to tell me what I have to do. So, all right, moving on to questions from the chat. If Maddox and Landau argue that Men Are Better Than Women published by Simon & Schuster equals Dick having business in New York, will that work in their favor? I mean, if they could show that that's Dick having business transactions in New York, then in theory it could work in their favor. I don't think that's going to amount to a significant business transaction. At least as far as the Tesson International shoe is concerned. It's one business contact in New York. It's ostensibly in New York, but we actually don't know the terms of the contract. And like, one, how long that contract lasted. That book was published, like a decade ago, 8 years ago, something like that. We don't know. I mean, I assume Dick still gets royalties, but the duration, or the length of time separating the transaction and the present really plays an impact on whether they have significant financial or significant ties or business contacts. And then, the whole idea of a book deal is different because, like, that's one transaction that Dick did, maybe in New York, maybe not. Simon & Schuster's home office is in New York, but that doesn't mean that's where they do business. It doesn't mean that Dick traveled to New York to do business with Simon & Schuster. It doesn't mean that he solicited to Simon & Schuster. Actually, I think Simon & Schuster reached out to him. So if that's the case, I think that's his story, right? Is that an editor from Simon & Schuster contacted him, say, hey, you know what? I've been following your website. Here's an idea for a book deal. If you're interested. That's not Dick entering into the stream of commerce in New York willingly. Therefore, it may not actually qualify as a business contact at all. Plus, if Dick negotiated to have California law or some other law, or maybe Simon & Schuster, like Patreon, for example, being based in Delaware, but having their home office in California, if Simon & Schuster isn't incorporated in New York and they operate under a different choice of law provision, it wouldn't be a sufficient business contact. So I hope that helps. I don't think that proving his book was through Simon & Schuster and therefore, would presumptively be in New York. I don't think that's going to actually tip the scales in this case. It's possible. We don't know the details of the contract. And Maddox had an opportunity to raise this, and he didn't. But, yeah, we'll see. Tony McModnut. If, as we all hope he will, Maddox loses all this spectacularly, does he have a case against his counsel? The paperwork has been abysmal. Yes. He at least has the appearance of a case from our side. We are outside observers. But this is an important question because a lot of people have asked, what about Landau? What's going to happen to Landau? Is Landau guilty of all of these different crimes like perjury and some of that stuff? And maybe he is, maybe. But, lawyers, we write the rules, we enforce the rules. So I don't want to go out and say that Landau is guilty of criminal activity. Although, if he wrote this, or even read it and signed off on it, then colloquially and societally, he is guilty of a crime of some sort. And because it's just shameful. Just shameful nonsense. And what I'm going to do here is close these out. Go away. So you get a little more of the frame. Although now I'm not in it all the way. Okay. So, Landau is potentially on the hook. But it would be really a determination of what has transpired between him and Maddox, what they've agreed to, and if Maddox wants to pursue an action. Because in this case, Landau would be subject to Maddox's action in court. Like he'd be breaching his duty to Maddox. So Maddox could potentially sue him in court. But courts don't like to punish lawyers for losing. So like I said, it would depend heavily on the representations he made to Maddox in his skill and ability and what his actual involvement is. I mean, he and Maddox could have agreed and contracted to the idea that he would have a very hands-off approach unless this thing went to trial, and that Maddox would simply pay per document. If that's the case, Landau may not have set himself up properly. Only time will tell. If Landau had a hand in writing that complaint, or if he actually read the complaint before submitting it, I doubt he has a very strongly written retainer agreement. But, Landau Group has been in business for a while, so maybe one of the other lawyers wrote their retainer agreement. I don't know. Does Maddox know the court doesn't take mad bucks? No, I don't think so. Let's see. Let me get to the next question. I'm going to try and keep up. I'm a little behind in the chat. Tagging me helps me see your question if you got a legit question. And, feel free to keep chatting. But if you tag me, I'll be able to read it either. Drink Rekieta Law says Clay early. No. Trademark question. Could a judgment be ordered that Maddox has to credit Masterson as an author on the biggest problem website, ID3 tags, etc.? No. Not by the trademark court. That would be a district court claim. The trademark is simply interested in who is issuing who they are issuing the mark to, and if that issuance is proper to get a copyright claim, and to get writing credits. For example, you typically have to file in district court, and then a trademark, for example, could be used as evidence, or you could use their refusal to issue a trademark as evidence in that district court. But no, I believe it would be a separate action. Let's see. Should we drink whenever he addresses the chat? Yes, Clay, do so. You have to not petition for a road rage in Minneapolis. I have not petitioned for a road rage in Minneapolis, and I will continue to not do so. But if one comes here, I'll be there. Does YouTube need something in particular to activate the paid comments? Yes, they do. I don't know what it is. I know how to do it on the other thing, the other streaming page, but I didn't do it here. Again, I'm still learning this, so I will be exploring that soon. Maybe I can figure that out in some testing stuff, and then we can try it with the Google LoLsuit or something like that. Yeah, let's see. Question. Asterios' lawyer asked to be heard on the 26th for his motion. So we see Maddox's response by the 19th, 7 days before that, or will they rule on the commercial court before the 19th? Okay, so I don't know. I don't know whether that will happen, and I don't actually know the rules. The New York Rules of Civil Procedure are really voluminous, and not being an expert or a current practitioner in New York, I'm not as familiar with them as I would like to be if I were actually practicing. The real question is, one, when the court will set the date. Because if the date is the 26th, then I believe that motion responses would be due 7 days prior to that date, because then there's got to be another motion response date ahead of that. But if the court will actually set the date on the 26th, I might be a little surprised. I think they might calendar it out a little farther, just based on how busy courts typically are. I don't know, and again, I don't have enough knowledge and experience with the New York court system to know the answer to that. But if they do calendar it for the 26th, then we may have to see a response from Maddox by the 19th, or Maddox loses, plain and simple. So I hope that helps. I'm still researching the rules, but I have not had time to dig into them as much as would be, because like really they're poorly organized, and where you'd think they would have the simple time limits for this stuff, it's not there. Let's see. Okay, trying to catch up. Let's see. Can I drink repeatedly? Yes. Does Maddox have a case against the dog bite lawyer if Maddox wrote the document and the lawyer signed off on it? Probably not. That would be a real hard burden for Landau for Maddox to overcome. That'd be a real hard burden. It would really depend on what was in their retainer agreement and what representations he made as to his capacity as an attorney. Like, it's one thing if he says, you know what, you give me $500, I'll put my name on a document and submit it, and that's that, and then we'll see what happens. If he's clear about that, I don't think it's very ethical, but, maybe that's okay. If he says, you submit me a document, and then just pay me time to review it, which would be less time than it would take me to draft it, and I'll review it thoroughly, and I will suggest recommendations for edits, and I will research the law that you've looked into and make sure you're on point. If he did those sorts of representations, then he could be absolutely in trouble. But that would require, this would require Maddox hiring competent legal counsel in the forum, that is appropriate, and he has shown to be inept at hiring competent legal counsel. Captain Jack asked, what's Madcux been up to in this? Did he file anything? Madcux has not been effectively served, as far as we can tell, because Maddox and Landau have not filed proof of service. Whether or not he's received a document doesn't matter, because he's an out-of-state person. They have to file that proof of service, and that proof of service will tick the date running. There is a time limit from the filing of the case to when service has to be made, and it is approaching, I believe. So we'll see what happens there. But that's why we haven't seen anything from Madcux, I suspect, is because he has not been served. So he hasn't been served. He's ineffective, or he's effectively not in the lawsuit yet. Should I brave the snow for a smoke? No, don't smoke, buddy. Not good for you. Let's see. Does the anonymous filing hurt the case overall, or just mental Jane's, Jessica Irene Blum's right to compensation? It doesn't, under the law, it doesn't hurt their case overall, but I think it just goes to the heart of the issue, right? Judges are people. Clerks are people. I know sometimes they don't act like it. But ultimately, if you're a people, you look at things and you can't divorce yourself from the realities of the situation, right? Like, you can try and be objective and you can try and overcome your biases, but at the end of the day, they're going to look at an incompetently drafted document, unfounded in research, that looks a lot like they're trying to harass or punish people for saying things about them that they don't like. It's going to be really hard for them to overcome that. And having her file anonymously just looks like more of the same. More games being played, and a lack of respect for court procedure, especially from people who are represented. So legally, it doesn't hurt her case. Worst case scenario, legally, the judge would say you have to refile your pleadings, and if you want to proceed anonymously, you have to do it in the appropriate way, and it would push the clock way back on everything. Realistically, I think this just factors in as just one little tiny part to the whole. This whole thing needs to be dismissed because these people are ridiculous. Can Landau say Maddox, instead on filing his own document as a defense against sanctions? Insisted. Yes, and he absolutely would. He absolutely would do that. He said, look, he just borrowed my name. He paid me a small fee for the use of my name and my ability to file in New York. We agreed that if this thing went to trial, we would work out a contingency agreement on the future trial date. I'm just simply lending my expertise in filing and service of process. That's how he would approach this. I'm guessing, right? I'm not his lawyer, so I wouldn't know. But that's how Landau would probably go ahead and tackle an ethical charge against him in this. Doesn't mean he'd prevail. That's just the argument he'd make. What's the ignition timing on a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air 4-carb? They didn't make 4-carb Bel Airs in 1957, right? How accurate is Legally Blonde? Not. Let's see. How do you pronounce your last name? Rekieta. Rekieta is how you pronounce my last name. A lot of people say Rekieta, and so I just don't correct them anymore. Thanks, Andrew, for answering that. Let's see. Where are we? Gosh. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up. You guys are typing fast. Doesn't Maddox have to show $20 million in loss to justify this suit? No. You can... It's bad form to show $20 million as a claim. That's bad form for him, but he doesn't have a way to show $25 million in. He doesn't have to show $20 million in loss. Like if this went to trial, he would have to show $20 million in loss, but if he wanted to win, he'd have to show whatever losses he can. But, that would be ultimately it's up to the court to determine damages, and you can allege whatever you want. Typically, people just allege damages in excess of $75,000 if they're trying to get into court, or in this case, if you wanted to be in the commercial division, you'd allege damages in excess of $500,000. I think I covered was Mad Cuck served properly. We don't have any information that he was served properly at this point. They haven't filed the service paperwork. So whether he got it or not, and whether they executed it properly, they didn't file, so he isn't served. Joan told him Maddox claimed the $20 million amount was his lawyer's idea and he's not allowed to discuss it. No, that's absolutely not legit. Maddox is pretending, as he has done in everything for his entire career, as far as we can tell, by him saying he can't discuss something. That's absolutely bogus. It's absolutely bogus. Him saying we can't discuss is just not a real thing. Yeah. Let me try something real quick. I am. I'll see if this works on the fly. Give me just a second. Let me see. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, and it's really, really difficult. So I'm going to see if I can enable Super Chat, which would allow me to maybe keep track of this better. I don't know. Let me see. Okay. So I just enabled Super Chat. I don't know if it's going to kick in on this. But if you guys somehow get the option, or if someone wants to test it out, I don't know, let me know. Otherwise, it should be up for the next live stream. Let's see. From a legal standpoint, are traps gay? I mean, I think it depends on the trap, right? You'll have to figure that one out and do maybe a little more research on the specifics of the trap. These things are fact-intensive questions, Clay, and I'm not gonna presume to know the answer without the facts involved. Let's see. Is it possible that Landau is part of Maddox's poly group? I think anything is possible. Except for the fact that I don't think that anyone would want to be in a poly group with Maddox. That sounds disgusting. Do I know what the trolley problem is? If so, do you change the tracks or no? You always change the tracks in the trolley problem. When you've been given a decision, you take it. Let's see. What kind of settlement would you aim for if you were Maddox's lawyer? So if I were Maddox's lawyer and I were prosecuting this case, I would aim for a settlement that was reasonable, which, I know. I mean, I think if we look at this in the most beneficial light and ignore everything we know about Maddox and Dick and the situation, and we come up with a competent legal strategy for attacking it, that at least gives the other lawyers pause, because you guys have to understand, the other lawyers, from Weber Shandwick, Patreon, Dick's lawyers, I'm not in the room with them having this discussion, but I think ultimately they're as unconcerned with the danger of this lawsuit as they can reasonably be. There's always a risk in lawsuits that you lose. There's always a risk no matter how stupid the other party is. And in this case, we know the other party is massively stupid, massively incompetent, horrifically short-sighted. So there's always a possibility of losing. But you get to a point where you're like, I'm pretty sure we're going to win. Pretty sure we're going to win. And I think they basically dismissed this whole... I think they're basically thinking they'll dismiss the whole thing. But if there were something credible, in there, some competent legal attack, I think pushing for $50,000 as an opening request and trying to settle somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 might be reasonable. If Maddox could show that Dick hurt his book sales, sure, $30,000, $25,000, maybe. Or if Dick caused, if Maddox believes his brand has been damaged and Dick could show that, I think based on the numbers we saw from Biggest Problem in the Universe, pulling in like as a show something like $60,000 in profit for the year, like showing a $30,000 loss might be reasonable, and I think he could probably do it. If he's trying to pretend that he's pulling anywhere near $1 million on the Whale book in his new podcast, he's deluding everybody, or he's deluding himself. I don't know. A series on sovereign citizens. Whew, that'd be interesting. Is there a way to countersue that doesn't involve an anti-slap? Not really. If he were to raise this action again, yeah. But the courts are really hesitant to allow people to countersue, even when a suit is largely, or at least looks frivolous, right? The courts are reluctant to do that because you have the right to bring suit to address grievances, and the court doesn't want to oppose people raising grievances without a really good reason to do so. In this case, I don't think, other than anti-slap, there's really a way to sue, to counter-sue against Maddox, except for potentially the defamation of the rape video, right? Like, the rape video for a normal person would have probably been a good case for defamation. For a mini celebrity, it gets a little harder, but I think there's still stuff there that it would I think it would survive a motion for summary judgment or a motion for dismissal, but I don't know if they'd ultimately win at trial. It would really depend on the specific language used in the video. But Maddox has leaked some stuff now that makes it look even worse. Like when he says he screen tested it 4 times, we would presume that he was trying to make it more and more damaging. I know that wouldn't be his claim, but that'd be the argument you'd take. So, and Dick can show actionable losses for those things. The question is, do those losses outweigh the cost of the lawyers? And that's hard to say. Shouldn't even Maddox realize that their case, and even more so their arguments, are retarded? No, Maddox shouldn't, because Maddox is retarded. And if you didn't learn this from The Biggest Problem, I'm sorry, but go back and re-listen. Maddox consistently fails to make coherent logical argument. He doesn't even seem to understand what a coherent logical argument is. Maddox is a failure of critical thinking, and he is a failure of argument. He is a failure of logic. I do not expect him to have any understanding of what is or what isn't a proper legal argument. I think so little of that man's intellect that I can't imagine what he would find correct that is actually correct. You're genuinely baffled at his inability to realize that this is reality and not a chat forum. I'm not. I'm genuinely not. I think Maddox has shown us over and over again that he literally finds himself to be the smartest person in any room he's in, and he literally thinks if he can just and Dick mentioned this, right? If I can just go talk to the judge, we'll get this sorted out. We'll get this figured out, and he'll agree with me. If I can just go talk to him and tell him my position, then that'll work. No. Maddox is an idiot. He is literally stupid. Not one coherent argument. Every argument that came close to being coherent from Maddox was a joke. Like an actual joke. And I don't think he realized that they were legitimate arguments. Is calling someone a dumb idiot a legal conclusion? No, it's just an insult. You didn't say dummy citation needed or flipping much. How am I to get cirrhosis now? Sorry, Clay. Your drinking problems are not my prime motive in this. Let's see. Should make Stove a moderator of the chat, and he can monitor it, and he can PM you in another window of the good questions. I don't know if that's a good idea. Dick may have hurt his sales, but the real crime is Dick hurt Maddox's feelings. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think Maddox was properly briefed on the risks he was undertaking to himself beforehand? No, I don't think so. But I think the risks are really they're tangible outcomes, but I think they're intangible processes. Like, your brand and reputation are going to be destroyed if you go do this. You look like a complete moron. You undercut your own propositional statements that you've made for the past 2 decades. But as for the risks, it's hard to say. I think Maddox genuinely thinks thought he was gonna win. I don't know if he still does. I can't imagine he still thinks he's gonna win. But yeah. I don't know who advises him on stuff, but whoever advises Maddox and didn't advise strongly against this course of action failed. But here's the thing. We have to assume that Maddox was probably strongly advised against his course of action and thought it was still correct. Let's see. Whoa. All right, catching up here. Does me making you drink count as a sub-dom relationship? Absolutely. For you, Clay, yes. And you, of course, are the sub. How would I go about proving a loss based on an intangible? It's not like Dick burned his books before they were sold or something. It's a really difficult thing to do, to show that your sales would have been better. And we have to go to this but-for sort of question, right? My book sales would have been better but for the actions of Dick Masterson. And the ways to show it are, he could show these aren't the best arguments, but they are arguments. They could show the disparity in listeners from the biggest problem to the biggest debate. And I would suggest there are probably a lot less listeners of biggest debate than there are biggest problem, despite how Maddox currently pimps it and how he talks about biggest debate or biggest problem in the universe failing. I think we can all infer that Biggest Problem was a much more successful podcast. It had much higher viewer participation. Viewer participation on Biggest Debate is just laughable. So one way to do it would be to show a decrease in those things, because what he can do is he can tangibly link some predictive models to sales of his merchandise based on number of viewers and cost of the merchandise, right? If he's got $20 shirts and he sells 50,000 of them based on having 300,000 YouTube subscribers, then he can, obviously he does not sell 50,000 shirts. Let me put that out there. But if like hypothetically, then he could reasonably expect to sell at least 50,000 $15 books to the same 300,000 subscribers, right? So if he can tangibly link Dick's actions to a loss of subscribers, then he can use predictive models, although he'd have to hire a real mathematician to figure them out. He can use those models to maybe predict what his losses would be. The other things he could do would be is if he actually lost contracts from Harry's and could then tangibly link that to Dick, if he claimed a loss of contracts from Kendall and Hyde or from other sources, and could tangibly link that directly to the actions of Dick or one of the other defendants, then he goes to show some tangible losses. But I mean, Maddox has just trashed his own brand by making bad decisions. No, he cannot sue the movie Fargo for claiming it was based on true events. So that's not a thing. Yeah. So we're getting to the end. I've caught up to the chat. If I have missed any questions, please go ahead and throw them out now. We're at 1 hour and 6 minutes. I think this is a good time to start wrapping things up, unless you get me going on a rant, in which I will happily rant at just about any time of day. So if you've got questions that are off the subject of these two suits, please feel free to ask those as well. I'm going to hang out for just a couple more minutes here, and I'm going to drink this whiskey in silence and wait and see if any other questions pop in the chat. Angry Steve, I don't lose. Sorry, buddy. Last time I lost. Okay. Shop talk. Losing is actually a matter of perspective on some of these cases. When have I outright lost in court? I have lost on motions to suppress evidence and stuff like that. But ultimately, even when we lose on motions to suppress evidence, end up getting, what we want for our clients. And that's usually, in those cases, right, we're trying to keep them out of jail or keep a felony off their record. And we have lots of good success in keeping people out of jail and keeping felonies off their record. The biggest loss I ever had was not a loss in court. One of my clients killed himself last year. That was actually really tough to deal with for me. It's not something that they prepare you for. I'd kind of developed... I don't want to call him a friend. I don't want to cheapen. We had a very much a professional relationship, but he was an easy to talk to guy. He was a nice guy. He's a good kid. I call him a kid. He was in his 20s, but that was really tough. And I was representing him in a criminal case, and I was representing his family in a civil case that was related to the same events. The criminal case had been resolved when he killed himself. The family case was ongoing. We did win handily in the family case, which was nice, but nothing can replace the loss of a kid. So that was the absolute biggest loss that I've ever had. It had nothing to do with court. In court, I really don't lose. I'm not saying I have special ability or anything else, but I've been fortunate to have clients who genuinely are pretty much in a good position. And then, I tend to screen out people who I can't help. If people want me to do something unethical, I'm not going to do it, and I tell them that up front. And if you've got a shady sort of story, I don't lie on your behalf. I try and find a legal way out of things for anybody who needs it, and I have good success with that. Can I explain why the Commerce Clause is the best thing ever? I have a full video on the Commerce Clause coming up. I cannot rant about that here. We do not have 27 hours for me to sit and scream. I can't rant about the last several seasons of House MD being shit because I never liked that show. I never did. The funniest thing in House for me was when Family Guy called in-house and asked for a rule book so that Peter Griffin could throw the rule book out the window. That was the only funny thing to me. I never cared for that show. My friends watched it, and if you like it, cheers. I just don't care. Vikings win today, prove they're not cursed. I don't know if it proves that. I'm not a big football fan, and I'm not a Minnesota fan typically. I'm from Texas, so I like to laugh. I'm from Houston specifically. I like to laugh at the Texans. I like to watch the Astros. I was glad the Astros won the World Series because my dad was glad the Astros won the World Series. He's been a fan forever. But I'm not a huge sports guy. But no, I don't think the Vikings win today, proving they are not cursed. I think it proves that there wasn't a hurricane in Louisiana, so the refs maybe didn't have to try as hard to help them win. I don't know. My girlfriend begged for us to get a cat, and I caved. How bad did you F up? Cats are cool, dude. The only way you screwed up is if you're the one cleaning the cat box and feeding the cat. If that's the case, find some cyanide. For yourself, not for the cat. Don't kill cats. Can Jane Doe... Please, guys, her name is Jessica Irene Blum. Let's be clear on this. Can Jessica Irene Blum be punished for contacting 80s girls' loved ones from the restraining order? It really depends on if it happened before or after the restraining order was issued. If it happened afterwards, possibly. Very possibly. The other thing... how do you turn off... Hey, neat. How do you turn off caps lock? The super chat works. You don't. You don't ever turn off caps lock. Always keep it on because always be yelling. Let's see. How much do you charge to get a 15-year-old misdemeanor expunged? Depends on the misdemeanor and if it falls under the expungement statutes. I don't like to cite my prices online because they're different for each situation. But, probably pretty easy if it falls under the statutes. It wouldn't be more than a couple $100. Is that a pack of cigs on the frame picture of Scalia? Also, why do you have a frame picture of him? I liked him too, but why the frame? The frame picture of Scalia was a gift to me from Tess Lynch because she knows that I like Scalia. And if you don't like Scalia, get over his opinions and just laugh at his writing style and his mannerisms and his brilliance. You can disagree with brilliant people all the time. Scalia was an unquestionably brilliant man. Yes, he has all sorts of contradictions. Many people do. But yes, the smokes are the parliaments that I won at the Chicago Road Rage. I do not smoke. I never have. Cigars are a different story. But I don't smoke cigarettes and won't ever. So that's just my trophy. Let's see. Is it legal to try and advertise to customers in a rival company's store? It depends. It depends on, it depends on what the store's rules on solicitation are. I don't think it's outright illegal. Could they... If you go in there with a bunch of flyers, if you go into the Reebok store with a bunch of Nike flyers and hand them out to people and say, hey, go check out the Nike store, I think the worst thing they can ask you to do is leave. If you refuse to leave, then it becomes a different question. So that's how that goes. What the hell did I lose? I lost everything. Not really. But if the store has a non-solicitation thing out front, or more importantly, if you're in a similar shopping center or shopping mall, you probably have specific terms of your contract that you'd be violating by advertising in another person's store or soliciting in another person's store. That's what you really need to be concerned about. But you got to check the specific laws of your state to see if that would actually be illegal in the criminal sense. As for civil sense, I would think that the worst they could do is ask you to leave, and then once you refuse to leave, then you're opening yourself up to real legal liability. But not legal advice, right? Check with the attorney in your state. When are you and Keon going to team up for a super live stream? I don't know. I should talk to Keon about that. That might be fun. I don't know if he'd be interested in doing that or not. He's appeared on Dick's show, but I haven't ever seen him on a YouTube thing. That's not saying he wouldn't. We had an email exchange over me representing Asterio suing Dick over the invoice, or suing Diego more appropriately. That was pretty fun. So he might be up for something like that. And as this thing keeps rolling, I'm going to look at bringing in guest lawyers and stuff who may have some expertise in some fields that I don't, right? I'm a defense attorney. I'm hoping to potentially bring a prosecutor on at some point. There's some other personalities from the Dick Show and from elsewhere who might be really interesting. What is the biggest problem in the universe? Maddox. I mean, he really is. That's it. I love you too, Clay. I really do. What does my shirt say? Okay. I got this shirt for my sister for Christmas. I really like it. It's got Jesus talking to a bunch of superheroes, and he says, and that's how I save the world. Obviously, it's a pithy Christian shirt. I am a Christian person, and I don't care if you are or not. I'm not out to change people's beliefs, but if you ever want to talk to me about it and argue with me, I've had many fine drunken arguments over Christianity. Those are always fun. But as far as Christians go, I'm probably like the worst one in a lot of ways. So it's fun. But no, love my sister, love the shirt. Yeah. So that's what my shirt says. Whoa. What would it take for me to become licensed to practice in North Dakota? Time and money. Actually, probably a lot of money. I've looked into getting licensed in other states, and it's like $1,500 to $2,000, and getting that done without having a guaranteed source of income in that state or a desire to travel to that state with frequency is not high on my list to do. Do I have any thoughts on the future of cryptocurrency? I think it's got a good future. I think we saw recently what we see in a lot of economics with a new product entering the market, where we saw a shoot past equilibrium and then a correction. And in crypto, there's no trading window. You can trade at all times of the day, which I think is a good thing. But I think it makes for a little more volatile product. But I think crypto has a lot of future. I'm interested because cryptocurrency is taxed, right? Like if you mined a bunch of Bitcoin, you're taxed on the value that you mined at the time that you mined it as income, and then anything from the point of either mining or purchasing, any gains that you earned are potentially taxable capital gains if you made the sales. And I don't know who's doing the reporting on that or how it works, but I think we may have a lot of millionaires engaged in tax fraud this year. So we'll see. There's a reward for anyone who can find the law that says all citizens must pay taxes because no one has ever found it. Can you find it? I mean, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. And that's probably a very semantic argument. I mean, the tax code is ridiculous and needs to be revised. That's a good gimmick to get there. But if you're looking for a law that says all people need to pay tax, you can't have that law like that because not all people have income, right? So I don't know. I don't know if you'll find it in the law. But here's the other question. Is it in a regulation? Because the tax law might be 30,000 pages or whatever. The tax regulations are twice as big. So is it a regulatory measure? And regulatory measures often carry the force of law. So it's a gimmick, right? It's a talking point, an argument, and it's a good enough one. IRS needs to be abolished. We need to simplify the tax code well beyond even what Trump has done. Taxation doesn't make sense logically. Taxing income doesn't make sense. Taxing death doesn't make sense. Taxing ownership of things that are ongoing doesn't make sense. What makes a lot of sense is taxing business transactions. It's the Ayn Rand argument, but sales transactions, business transactions make sense because the government enforces those contracts. And I'm sure we can easily, with some math and stuff, peg the desired income to GDP and tax it at an appropriate rate. I need to team up with YouTuber Law. Mr. Lior seems like a good dude. I don't know if our styles mix up, and I have no opposition to that. I don't have a specific way to reach out to him, but that could be an interesting stream that I'm definitely looking at. What was your path to becoming a fan of the Dick Show? I listened to Biggest Problem from pretty much the beginning. Found it by happenstance. I don't even know how. I don't remember how I got to the show, but I think I might have searched for Maddox or something. I know I had watched a couple of his YouTube videos when he was still making them, and that might have led me to the show. I don't remember, but I very quickly on that show became a fan of Dick, and started to see Maddox for the sham that he was. Am I a biblical literalist or symbolist? Neither. I'm not an ist. I'm not a biblical ist. I'm a read the Bible and try and figure out what the hell we're supposed to do ist. Is the best thing I can say there. I don't want to say like I'm any specific sect. I think pretty much all of them are wrong. I'm certainly not a young Earth creationist. Never have been. And I don't think that there's like that Genesis is telling a literal story. So in that sense, I'm a literalist or a symbolist, I guess. But like I don't think it's that simple. But the closest I can come is we'll say I'm a deconstructing Christian. And if you're in Christian circles, you may know what that means. If not, check out the Liturgist podcast or the Bible for Normal People podcast. I'm one of the guys who questions just about everything in regards to Christianity, but still happens to believe in God. That's where it is. And that question doesn't mean I disagree with everything. It just means I think we need to question everything, because if this is the most important thing on earth that we could possibly do, we need to figure that out. Any opinion on the other lawyer YouTubers? I like YouTuber Law. His expertise and experience in technical law is something that I don't have, and I really like that about him, and I like learning from him. I'm surprised his channel has so few subscribers. That's not a knock, by the way. I think if more people were exposed to him, that he would have more. But there aren't that many lawyers on YouTube. I've noticed, and I think it's because, when I started this YouTube channel, I got like 10 warnings from different lawyers, like, "Whoa, be really careful what you say." It's like, if anyone thinks I'm representing them by a YouTube video, they've got other problems. What makes me better than all of them? Well, just general anger management issues and liquor. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in other things. Lior's a cool guy. I'd like to have a drink with him sometime. I don't know that he's the best storyteller. Maybe I'm a better storyteller. Maybe not. I don't know. I like me more than anybody else on the planet, just about, except for my wife. I like her more than me. I like me second, and I like my kids third through seventh. Third through seventh as a tie. But Leonard French, I'm not a big fan of his gimmick. Other people like him, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not saying he's bad. It just doesn't captivate me at all. Would you still be a lawyer if you have to wear stupid wigs like we do in England? Yes, Leon, I would. And the reason I would is because I also play foot golf, and I love the ridiculous outfit that you have to play during foot golf. Let's see. Explain to me why Jesus says my rights as a sovereign citizen are just. I don't consider Judge Judy a serious judge because Judge Judy isn't a serious judge. Don't lie about me. Can I quantify how retarded Maddox is? Give me an IQ estimate. I think Maddox, this is the biggest insult I can possibly give him. I think Maddox has a predictably average IQ. 95. 95, I think, is right in his wheelhouse. I think he may have some sort of gift or flair for language. And I don't want to say gift or flair, right? Because what he puts out isn't profound or anything, but it's at least interesting. But as for actual intelligence, I would say it's low, not low, average. I think it's perfectly average. I think there's very little exceptional about his IQ at all. If a cop stopped me and held a gun to my head and I held a gun to myself head and threatened to kill myself unless he let me go, what laws would I have broken? I don't know. It depends on the forum you're in. Can I turn water into whiskey? God, I wish it'd be cheaper. I found out about the Dick Show, to answer Kuro Moon's question. I found out about the Dick Show pretty quickly, right away. And I know I just skipped a bunch of people. So let me just... I found out about it right away. I Patreoned pretty quickly. I don't remember what episode, but I jumped up to 20 very, very early on. But yeah, it was from the get-go. I was not heartbroken over the biggest problem in the universe. I was a little shocked, but once I found the Dick Show was running, I jumped right in. Do you believe in the death sentence? That's a good question. I used to be a big supporter of the death penalty. I believe that the state probably has the power and authority to kill people. However, I don't trust our state to do it competently. And I haven't seen a state that I do trust to do it competently. So I hope that answers that question. Because, you know, the death penalty probably should... the death penalty... I think we have the power to do it under the Constitution. But I don't think we do it correctly. And I'm getting to the point where even one mistaken death caused by the state is one of the greatest tragedies I can think of. I'm tired of the state killing people by accident. And I really don't want the state to kill people by mistake of being wrong. Can I prove the earth is round? I mean, I can, but would you accept it? As a sovereign citizen, we believe the earth is flat and we have proof. I'm with it. How would I describe my state to European who has no idea where your state even is? My state is in the farthest north middle of the country. It is basically a bunch of Norwegians and Germans running around, and that's, fine, except for the food is bland, it's cold as hell, and I don't, really care for either of those things. Sorry, let's see. Do I know the way? Yes, of course I know the way. Am I a big gay? Nope, not gay. Very much have 5 children that are conceived by me. Can I explain / justify Macho Man Randy Savage not being mentioned in the New Testament? Absolutely not. And this is one of the glaring omissions. And interestingly, right? So we have... The New Testament spans, most people don't realize this, the New Testament spans several centuries of writing, because Revelation is a much later book than most of the other books that we rely on in the New Testament canon. And there was a big argument on whether the book of Revelation should be canonized or not, because it contains a lot of fantasy and metaphor that was resemblant of the other apocryphal books. You're talking like the Book of Enoch and stuff like that. So there's a big argument over whether Revelation should be included or not. It was 240 years removed from Jesus' death or something like that. Whereas most of the other books are within a century. But even so, we have, Paul writing in Paul's quotations in Acts, and then Paul writing later on in Romans and the epistles. We have Paul actually taking real liberties with the Torah texts, texts that are at this point 800 years old, and basically rewriting what they meant. And if Paul can rewrite texts that are 800 to 1,000 years old and change the meaning, I don't see why we can't canonize another book now that talks about the saving that Macho Man Randy Savage did on a nightly basis when he was still with us. Peace be upon him. Do I think the burden of proof lies on theists to prove that God exists? And if religion wasn't passed down, would we all be atheists by default? Okay. I don't think the burden of proof lies on either theists or atheists, because I don't think there's a point in having an argument about something that is ultimately unprovable. Whether God exists or not cannot be logically proven or disproven. And this is an important claim for theology, right? Because if you're supposed to be operating on faith and you have proof, you can't operate on faith. And if you attempted to disprove anything within the realm of our understanding, we would simply Christian apologists, right? Not me. I'm not an apologist. I don't like apologist texts. That's not a genre of writing that I agree with. But Christian apologists would come out and merely state that you're attempting to claim something beyond our understanding within the framework of human understanding and observation, and that which cannot be understood and observed cannot be disproven. So I think it's a pointless burden shift to get tied up in. I don't think it's profitable. If God did not, or if religion wasn't passed down, would we all be atheists by default? I think, based on what little I know about evolution and evolutionary psychology and sociology, I think the idea that if the religions we know weren't passed down, we would still have some other religion passed down. I don't give special dispensation to Christianity as being the right religion or holding some sort of special thing. I mean, I think it is right based on what my understanding is, but again, like these aren't things I can prove, and it involves a lot of personal claims and personal experiences in my life that I cannot replicate for other people, so I'm not going to try to do so. But I think in the absence of Christianity or the absence of Islam, we would have some other thing, because I think evolutionary psychology requires us to believe that there's a God, whether there's a God or not. And I think it's called the principle of agency, right? If you guys out there are, have experience in this field, let me know. But I believe the principle of agency is like when we were hunter-gatherers and something shook a bush, it wasn't that bush rattled, it was that bush is trying to tell me something. It rattled because of me. It's warning me. Something in there is out to get me. And it's an evolutionary trait that keeps us alive. Whatever. 4 kids? No, I have 5 kids. How would I describe... Oh, I did this. Let's see. No, I do not believe that Macho Man Randy Savage was the second coming. And the second coming seems like a strange way to phrase things. But does the amount of children I have reflect upon the poor sex education USA that I keep hearing about? No, my wife and I's children choices are very intentional. And whether we will have more or not is an open question. I don't know. Do I trust the government to do anything properly? No. Let's see. 95 is average depending on where you come from, Clay. 100 is average maybe in the US. I don't know. Who did my logo? My logo, the Rekieta Law, the RL logo was part designed by me and part designed by my friend Sam, who's a good buddy of mine. He's been around forever. If you check out my Rekieta Law Facebook page, it's actually got a link to his art page down. Like the first post, I think I posted the logo and thanked him for it and linked to his Facebook or DeviantArt page or whatever. Why do cops like shooting dogs so much? I don't know, right? Like, that's a good question. I think cops have been brainwashed into thinking that their job is more dangerous than it is, just like the rest of us. And I may do a video on that sometime in the future. Let's see. 1 dick 10 times or 10 dicks once? Whew, gosh. Neither. And that's a cheating answer, but I'm not going to do it. Let's see. Are drug laws unconstitutional? Probably not. But, this all goes back to the Commerce Clause, which was mentioned earlier, and has a big video coming out. When I say they're not unconstitutional, I think they might have been unconstitutional in the original understanding of the Constitution. But the expansion of the Commerce Clause, starting really with Wickard v. Filburn, which I think was 1929, and going endlessly full steam ahead from that, has made just about anything constitutional. Adam Cargyle. Are there any hot black girls in Minnesota? Yeah, absolutely. Have I read the Book of Mormon? No, dear Lord. I try not to. Am I a big gay baby? No, I'm not a big gay baby. I'm significantly older than a baby. If God exists, why would he take Macho Man Randy Savage away from us? Because can you appreciate something that's here fully without its absence? That's the real question. Does he, let's see. Would you ever open your heart to our Lord and Savior Nurgle? Maybe, but man, I don't like being all warty. Let's see. Covering the Hulk Hogan versus Gawker media lawsuit? Possibly. It's interesting because it's a public figure who won a breach of privacy and defamation case. And so it's definitely on my radar. Let's see. What do they think about JF Garipi's cease and desist letter to Destiny? It's interesting. I haven't read the underlying case yet, and I'm not fully aware of the facts. All I know is that the one guy threatened to sue Destiny, and I'm really hoping that those documents go public. If he does go through with the lawsuit, I will be covering it. But I haven't read his cease and desist letter. If you throw me a link, I'll read about it and hopefully address it in a video soon. What is Wonder Bread? Is it bread? Is it full of wonder? No, but it is keto. It is absolutely keto, so eat as much Wonder Bread as you can. Are affirmative action laws unconstitutional? Tough question. I mean, they're not unconstitutional. They're upheld under the Constitution. I'm going to have to go through like what constitutionality is as far as the Supreme Court is concerned and what those tests are. But I'll think about doing that in the future. The James Damore case, stay tuned. I've got a video coming out on that this coming week. This coming week, my goal, since I think these two suits are slowing down heavily, the James Damore case, I will be doing a read through of the full thing, and I will cover it in its entirety. And I'll give my thoughts on how likely he is to win after I read it. My initial thoughts, based literally on almost no reading of the document at all, is that he's unlikely to prevail. Not that he doesn't raise good points. We'll see about those, but I just think it's a hard case to win when you're not when you're a white dude, right? Like to put it bluntly, discrimination cases against white males under the law, they should be a legitimate thing. But under the way the courts apply the law, they may not. Let's see. Do I shave when I have to appear in court? How often do I have to appear in court? I shave down to this typically when I have to appear in court, unless it's not too shaggy. I don't appear in court super often. I do a lot of transactional work. I do appear in court. I've got a couple drug cases that I just picked up this month, so I have to appear a couple times this month, a couple times next month, but most of my work is actually done outside of the courtroom, either through me picking up a phone and screaming at someone, or through me writing angry letters. That's how I do a lot, or me writing contracts and wills and stuff like that. That stuff pays the bills, and I enjoy doing some of that. It's a nice break. Let's see. What is my problem with the Commerce Clause? Because it was originally to make commerce regular and has been twisted from its intended meaning. My problem with the Commerce Clause is that under the way the courts apply the Commerce Clause, it could literally apply to anything. And Wickard v. Filburn set up something called the Dormant Commerce Clause, which is the basis for Obamacare's passage, but was not the way it was upheld, right? It was upheld under the Tax and Spend Clause by Chief Justice Roberts, but the Dormant Commerce Clause allows the non-participation in a stream of commerce to be interstate commerce, which means that if the government could, in theory, compel you to buy something, because to not buy something would be commerce in the same way, and they can regulate not buying something. This is how they plan to pass Obamacare. It's not how it was upheld, but under the understanding of the Commerce Clause, man, it just opens it up for everything. Let's see. If you found a link but won't let you share it here, throw it in the comments to this live stream when it goes live, and I'll take a look. What do I think of the Constitution? It's a good document. It's not perfect. We were supposed to amend it a lot more than we have. But due to power creep and mission creep, we have just decided to go ahead and do it legislatively and not through the amendment process. Although, interestingly, I was looking at the schedule of like how amendments have come out, and we're pretty much due for another one, so that's kind of interesting. How do I feel about the way Minnesota sucks at getting measures on the ballot? Minnesota sucks at a lot of things. Yeah, I don't know. We at some point we're a republic, and I'm not the biggest fan of direct democracy because people like Maddox exist and are dumb. But representatives are dumb too. And when you have a dumb representative, then you've got a bunch of dumb voters in some way or another. So I don't know. I don't know that there's a perfect system or a perfect way to do it. I don't know that direct democracy is the proper way. And here's the problem I have with getting things on the ballot. Like in my school district here, and we homeschool our children, so our kids don't participate. But they put out a measure for a bonding referendum for our school district, and it was several $1 million. And then they put up another measure, or it failed. And then the measure the next year was for the same stuff, except it was for like an additional $10 million. And they had another year marketing, and they passed it. So here we go. Hey, thanks, Lydia. I will keep making excellent content. Thanks for the donation. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. Why do places like Walmart keep harassing people for receipts after they have bought their stuff and are leaving? Is it legal to treat your customers like thieves? This is an interesting question, and I was hoping to do this sociological experiment this year of telling them no, they could not review my receipt as I was leaving the store, because they cannot actually detain you unreasonably. And the reasonableness would be that they have some sort of evidence that you were shoplifting, not evidence that you were not shoplifting. So I think if you're leaving a Walmart and they ask to see your receipt, you can simply say no, because at that point, the worst thing they should be able to do is tell you to leave the store. If you want to test that out and report back, let me know. If they detain you, you may have a case against them, and that would be really interesting. But Walmart should, if they want to check your receipt, they can ask, but you should be able to say no, and I think they rely on that. This year, I was not asked to see my receipt, I think, except for one time, and I was in a hurry, and it was the oldest lady on earth who was asking me, which is the only reason I said yes, which really ruined my entire day. I wanted to say no, but I just didn't have time to potentially be held up that day. So, if Maddox kills himself and cites Dick as a part of the reason, why would he be liable in civil court? No. California does have a law for that, but would anyone miss him enough to prosecute? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Oh, and I think I saw somewhere, yes, I did see the case with the girl who convinced her boyfriend to kill himself via text messages. I am very wary about convicting anyone over speech for anything. And I mean anything. I am wary about convicting people for direct threats. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be convicted, but I am wary about it, okay? Very wary about that. So I have problems inherently with the conviction of this girl. But if anyone deserves to be convicted for that, it's her. But her conviction does worry me, just because expanding speech into criminality in any way bothers me. Have I ever dressed as Phoenix Wright in court? No. No, I have not. And not for Halloween. No. Uh, let's see. What's the worst thing your client did that pissed me off and may have caused you to lose your case? I did not lose this case. He may lose this case. I don't know. It's still ongoing. But I recently, if you don't know, I mean, this tooth is fake because my dog knocked it out last year, which was just freaking great. That tooth is fake, but my other teeth are all real. And I had one of my clients who had been a client for a couple years threatened to, quote, knock my other tooth out because he did not like an answer that I gave him. Because my job is not being paid to sugarcoat answers for you. My job is to give you the correct answer, right? Like, that's why you pay a lawyer. You pay a lawyer to tell you the thing you don't want to hear. He didn't want to hear it. He physically threatened me. It was probably the most pissed off I've been in a long time. Like I said, I don't do well with people telling me what to do. And if you hire me, you have come to me for my expertise, not to tell me how to do my job. This guy was trying to tell me how to do my job. That lawyer-client relationship broke down very quickly at that point, and I was furious. I was never frightened. I didn't actually think he would ever hit me. He did not, but I was pretty pissed. She did counter sue Maddox for not buying him out. No, and I don't think he can. No, Clay, you should not buy crosswords. Dax Desi, if you're a true sovereign citizen, I think you might want me to shit on the Constitution because aren't you under the Articles of Confederation? Think about it. Ever defend someone I thought was guilty? Yeah. You know, it's not my job to determine if people are guilty or not. It's my job to present the best defense that they can possibly get. And it's the prosecutor's job to produce the best offense that they can come up with and to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone is guilty. Whether they do that or not is up to them. Favorite faction in Total War Warhammer 1 is just having a little Balmor here. Close this off. Either Chaos with Kolek Suneater as the lead or Vampire Counts. I really like the Vampire Counts, and I like the Red Duke. He's only through a mod in number 1, but he's in number 2. In number 1, I like Von Karstein. That's not Manfred. Let's see. What was the best amendment? Why is it the Third Amendment? Like, honestly, the Third Amendment, not quartering soldiers in your house. I think the last case we had on this was in the 60s. But it's hugely important. In all honesty, like, all jokes aside, the fact that the government cannot come in and put troops in your house when they're like, you know, because if you live near an army base and you have reservists coming into town for their weekend duty, they could easily shack them up in houses instead of putting up base housing or base barracks. Like, the fact that we don't have soldiers staying in our houses is a good thing. Let's see. Do I shave my balls? No. Can you shave my balls? Probably not. You're not being detained currently. Security guard can detain you with limited authority, at least in my state, okay? And this is specific to Minnesota, but I think it's pretty consistent throughout some other states. But a security guard can detain you if they have reasonable, or it may even be beyond reasonable suspicion, but at least reasonable suspicion that you actually have an item in your possession. They can detain you for a reasonable amount of time so long as they have called the police and the police are on their way. And once the police are there, they turn you over to their custody immediately. Do you believe the pure democracy is tyranny of the majority in the sense that the Electoral College is a good idea? I do think the Electoral College is a good idea, absolutely. And I think a pure democracy is a nonsense idea. There are obvious problems with the pure democracy. I mean, I won't get into them all, but yes. Sorry. I assume I lost in a fight, and I don't think we'd be friends now. I have not lost in a fight. I don't fight often. really, really ever, not for a long time. And I know it'd be hard to get in a fight these days. So I don't know how I would lose in a fight. The way a dog knocked my tooth out is my dog had just had puppies, which is the worst decision of my entire life. And the dog was being loud at like 1 a.m. and barking, and I have a lot of kids, so I didn't want them to wake up. So I went in to scream at the dog, and it was dark, and the dog jumped up and hit me in the face and just broke my tooth in half. I don't know. Didn't hurt. It was the weirdest thing on earth to me, because I didn't think it was a hard enough hit to break my tooth, but that's how it happened. What's the most underappreciated field of law, not counting public defenders? I think criminal defense in general. Criminal defense in general is the most underappreciated field of law because people don't believe that they are criminals or that they could even be in that territory. And the moment they are very appreciative of having a lawyer. Other than that, people who protect kids, man. People who protect kids. I don't mean guardian ad litems. I don't mean the county. I don't mean any of that. I mean lawyers who protect children from abusive parents or from abusive relatives or from abusive schools. I mean lawyers who protect kids who need protection are the most underrated, underappreciated attorneys. And the stuff they have to go to do that is really tough. But yeah. Hey, what's up, Rage TH22? I'm glad you made it on your lunch break. Let's see. I answered how a dog knocked my tooth out. I should probably get Maddox's lawyers to sue my dog. Yeah, I probably should. Problem. Why am I a free speech absolutist? Is this a pathway to ethno-nationalism? Absolutely not. And I am not an ethno-nationalist. I'm an I don't care. I don't care about ethnicity or race about anybody. I get why some people do. I understand the argument. It's not my cup of tea. I am actually not like a strong nationalist at all. In a lot of ways, I do think that the nation is important, and I think the borders are important, but I think our immigration policy is largely informed on a 50-year policy, and we pretend that it's a 250-year policy. I'm not going to say that our immigration policy is wrong because it's 50 years. I think how our immigration policy is presented to us is disingenuous. The history of it, anyway. So I am a free speech absolutist, though, because I'm a free speech absolutist, and I think we should be able to say whatever the hell we want at any point in time. And I really don't ever want the state ever telling people what they can and can't say. And the fact that anyone would is beyond me. The fact that people are asking for people to be arrested when those people may be shot by the state is beyond me. We've got to stop this nonsense. Free speech 100%, even if it's offensive, even if it's gritty. I'm not even convinced that fire in a crowded theater is the wrong thing. I mean, I get it, but I don't think it should be a speech question at all at that point. And I think we need to stray away and strongly question whether any speech ever should be censored by the state as a matter of speech. Was I ever into the Warhammer's miniatures? No, I was not, because I could never afford them when I had time to play that stuff when I was much younger. I mean, my hands shake. Not like Michael J. Fox shake, but when I try and do fine detail work with paint, they shake. So I was not. I think they're cool. I love that people paint them, and they do awesome jobs, and I love looking at them. And I think I would enjoy playing the game, but the town I live in just doesn't have a lot of people who would play, and my skills as a painter are not good. If someone doesn't get a proper defense, would they have to repeat the entire trial? Or they have to repeat the entire trial? It's just their job. Sometimes. That wasn't really a question. Never mind. It's my favorite thing about Hillary Clinton. The fact that she lost, frankly, and that she'll die at some point. In all honesty, I never wish death upon anybody, and I would never wish death upon Hillary Clinton, But I think ending the Clinton legacy and the Clinton dynasty is something that needs to happen for the good of our country. I don't think she's a good person. I think she's guilty of several crimes. Based on the evidence I've seen, maybe she's not. Maybe she's not. But I think based on what we've seen, there's plenty to at least raise those questions. And the fact that they're not questioning them is just a sign of the elite status of political dynasties. And I don't like political dynasties. Let's see. Do I think Clay would survive in prison with my advice? No, Clay would not survive prison. Clay is too much. He's bait for prison. My campaign promises for my 2020 run. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that there's probably a blackface allegation coming your way. If I ever run for office, that video is going to be plastered across front and center, and probably some of my rants. I'm guessing my YouTube career is killing any political aspirations I've ever had. But, I promise to not lie. Like, honestly, the way politicians lie about stuff is beyond me. Oh, and I promise to take as much money from people as I possibly can, because I'm pro money in politics, and get over it. Let's see. My favorite president, and why is it Thomas Jefferson? My favorite president is actually Calvin Coolidge. But Jefferson seems pretty good. Can you put a sign on your property that says if you come on, you get shot? I mean, you can put the sign on there, but shooting becomes more dubious. Yes. Here's the thing. With the webcam resolution, I'm using OBS right now, and I could probably mess with the layout, but because I had the let's see, let me see if I can do there we go. Does that help? I hope that helps with the size of the thing, but it has to do with how OBS handles this stuff and my inexperience with OBS. I had documents up earlier and now I don't, and that kind of messed with things. Let's see. What was the worst way the British oppressed the 13 colonies? I think just by being under the monarchy in general is the worst way to oppress anybody. And truthfully, like, the early colonies were not paradises. Like, let's be honest. And if you look at them, they were all theocracies except for, I think, Rhode Island. And there were several issues with them. But the British maintaining monarchical control over them, I mean, that's the ultimate oppression, right? When you don't have the power of self-governance, you're oppressed. And you should know that because you're in England, and that's what Brexit was about in some ways. You live near the dentistry of the guy who 360 no-scoped that line. When I went to go record the protest, a cop told me to stop because recording without consent is considered wiretapping. It would really depend on the state, but I find that claim exceptionally dubious. But here's the thing, and this is one reason I'm not a huge fan of the police as an organization. Typically, I'm fans of individual officers that I've met, because the ones I've met tend to be pretty good. And I'm not usually dealing with them in any sort of legal capacity. But they lie. Cops lie. Cops are allowed to lie, and they do it as a matter of course and as a matter of their employment. And the sooner we admit that cops lie as a matter of employment and a matter of their business function, the better we will all be in this world. My property is 23 acres and backs up to a highway. It's a 6-lane highway. I have a fence up there that came with the property. Can I remove a section to drive onto the highway? Probably not without approval of your local Department of Transportation and your local zoning agency. You got to check with them. It's really going to depend on what type of community you're in and how strict the zoning is in that community. It's a good question. You probably don't need to have a lawyer answer the question. If you've got an aerial photo of that property, go to the county building closest to your house, or that's also within the county, and ask them. Just flat out ask them to talk to the zoning committee and find out what you need to do to drive straight onto the highway from there to have a right of way onto the highway. You could just do it, right? But then you run the risk of the county telling you to repair the fence at a mandatory expense. And if they tell you to repair an old fence, you might have to build a whole new fence, and that could just get really expensive, and I would hate for you to go through that. But go talk to your county zoning board. Which one is Hottie? Judge Judy or Judge Million? Who's Judge Million? Let me look real quick. Judge Million. I'm going Judge Million. Hotter than Judge Judy. Let's see. On a scale of you definitely are you to unquestionably are, am I better looking? You definitely are to unquestionably are you better looking than Dax Desi? You definitely are to unquestionably are. I don't know, man. How do each of you look in a cocktail dress? I guess that's the ultimate question. Let's see. Do I believe that the Constitution is a living and breathing document? No. 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 I believe that the courts have made it that way. But no. Obviously, if the Constitution were intended to be a living and breathing document that was to grow with the times in the sense of we could just reinterpret stuff, why would they have an amendment process? Why would they ever have an amendment process? We've bought into this stupid narrative that that lawmakers are supposed to do something and they're supposed to be doing something all the time. This is not true. Lawmakers were not really intended to do lots of things at all. Lawmakers were actually intended to do less. That's why we have a very adversarial system with checks on each of the government branches from each of the other. The idea was for things to move slowly. And if you notice, when things move slowly, we have economic stability and growth for long periods of time. Nowadays, they want to change laws and regulations, makes things unpredictable for businesses and for individuals, makes it so that you don't know how many felonies you're committing at any given point, and that's just disgusting in a free society. Oprah 2020, nay. 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 Ugh. Let's see. I'll let you find the blackface video. It's not hard. Can you sue the Electoral College for Trump taking away your entitlements? No. Which is worse, me wearing blackface or Rick Perry's property having a lake called... Neither. Neither of them is worse. Neither of them is bad. We need to get over it. We need to get over it. By the way, to clarify, I wasn't in blackface. I was in costume as another person who was present at a private party, and thought the joke was hilarious. He's a very good friend of mine, and I was not performing in a minstrel show, and I was not performing a piece of theater art, and I was not making a statement with the blackface other than dressing up as my friend, and I was wearing some of the articles of his clothing in that outfit as accentuating the joke. But I think Rick Perry's property, having the unfortunate naming convention, I just don't think it matters at all. I don't think it says anything about anyone. Rick Perry was the governor of Texas, and I guess there are probably some black people out there who did not like his policies, but I'm guessing there are a lot that were, and I think you'd have a really hard time finding overt examples where he somehow worked to the detriment of black people as a matter of intention. Got a super question. Thanks, Lydia. I agree that I have all the correct opinions. And I'm glad that you agree too. But yeah. You want to recreate the American Hero X scene in prison? You mean American History X, Clay? Clay, get your movies right. Terrible. How can you best con the U.S. government into giving my oppressed monarchy having refugee status? What you need to do is Leon, what you need to do is legislate against yourself in England so poorly that, or so thoroughly that they want to throw you out, or that they want to oppress you specifically, and then you apply for asylee status in the U.S. Vladimir, does Lincoln's first term and re-election provide any kind of precedent for a future event where habeas corpus could be suspended? Absolutely. Absolutely, habeas corpus can be suspended in times of war. Times of war make the let me give you a pro tip on the Constitution. The Constitution is great, and this is one of my problems with it. Constitution is great until the Supreme Court decides that it's inconvenient, and then it's not so great. And if you want to know why I don't call the Constitution perfect, why I have problems with everything that we've done to it, this is the big reason, right? They're solid constitutional principles that are 100% legit, and they're great until we find a reason to go against them. And I mean, the drug laws are a perfect example of it. The Commerce Clause is a perfect example of it. Upholding Obamacare is a perfect example of it. It would have been really inconvenient to overturn Obamacare, so they didn't do it. Anyway. Gotcha, Andy. I see, Andy, that your name is Rage22. Let's see. I'm gonna take a couple more questions, but I'm gonna start wrapping this up here because we're at 2 hours and 6 minutes, and that's getting long. I've never played the Phoenix Wright games. Yes, we can make a Let's Play a Patreon goal. Absolutely. I'm kind of thinking of starting a Twitch stream to do various gaming and legal rambling topics. So let's figure that out. If you throw up a proposal on Patreon, I'll take a look at it, and we can work it out and figure something out there. If it was living and breathing, why would they bother to write it down? Why not just say the government can do it at once? Absolutely. Bookham Dano. Great name, by the way. Yeah, that's absolutely true. What pedagogical methods do you use in learning your children? Rekieta Law. My wife does most of the teaching. Usually, I'm at my office working or sleeping and pretending to work. We use a curriculum that we buy. It is not Common Core, but it conforms to the requirements for homeschooling, which are something different. And we do, having 5 children, we've switched away from classical learning, I think, to a more Montessori style where the children work together to teach each other topics and to use the knowledge that they learn to help the other ones learn. And we don't have like an age breakdown or stratification like a current school does. It's more like an old school classroom where you have multiple ages working on similar subjects at the same time, and then it's just more or less complicated, tailored to the individual. My oldest son probably has the hardest time because he reads to our younger son certain lessons and helps out with teaching, but I think as the younger siblings grow up, they'll be exposed to that as well. So that's our pedagogical method, so to speak. What music am I fond of? Taylor Swift, buddy. And do I have any music and entertainment related cases? No, not really. I'm in central rural Minnesota. That type of stuff does not come out here with any regularity. But no, I like a ton of music, man. I used to really hate on different genres, and I moved away from that just by finding good music in any genre that I like. I just love being exposed to anything that is challenging, and I appreciate exceptional ability in other people, myself too, right? I appreciate my exceptional abilities, which are not in music at all. And so I really do appreciate the skill and talent of other people in various ways. And I can find that in any genre, from bluegrass to rap. And I like various bits of all of them. Hopefully, I know it's like a throwaway answer, but it's the truth. I can't just describe it any different. Oh, where'd we go? Where'd we go? Have I ever followed the exploits of Chris Chan? Not really. No, but if you've got something, send me a link. I'll check it out if you're interested. I just stated I wasn't wearing blackface yet. You tried to argue the intent of the blackface. How can there be intent if there is no blackface? Correct. Right. There was no intent of blackface. There was no actual blackface. There was me dressed up as my buddy, who happens to be black. But what does corporations are people actually mean? Corporations are people. This is a good question. Corporations are people actually means that corporations, there's an entity with something called personhood. And that personhood means that thing, that whatever that being is, that entity has a set of rights, has a set of responsibilities, and can infringe on the rights of others. And then, as a matter of course, can also be brought before a court, and they can be forced to address for wrongs of the entity rather than sheltering the entity from the wrongdoing. If we did not have corporate personhood, right, in theory you could create a corporation that would then be immune from liability, because if it's not a person, it can't do anything. And if you sometimes that would be okay, right? Like if you're going to go after the person, the corporation who wronged you, yes. But what if it was several people working together who individually did not wrong you, but collectively did? That's where the corporate personhood comes in. Corporations are people under the law, in as much as they are entities that have a series of rights, they have a series of responsibilities, and they have similar liberties and restrictions to the rest of us. And that has been so thoroughly bastardized as to be embarrassing. And Citizens United is a misunderstood case because of that. It's a very old concept. It is not new. Despite what our president said during his State of the Union address, our former president, I should say, said during his State of the Union address, this is an old concept, and it makes a lot of sense. And again, I'm pro-money in politics. Fight me on it all day. But I'm a free speech absolutist, and money is speech. So, you heard I do X-rated chats. Hurry up and flash already. That's for the high dollar Patreons, buddy. Would you support recreational marijuana in Minnesota? At this point in my life, yeah. I probably wouldn't have always supported it, but I would. I would at this point, because if you're not going to ban alcohol and cigarettes, then you can't ban marijuana. I'm sorry, you just can't. I'm not gonna support people using marijuana recreationally. I don't know that that's the best decision. I think that marijuana is insidious in its lack of physically addictive qualities, because I think that that's a shield for the fact that some people really do get sucked into it. And I've known plenty of people who have, and it's a shame to see it. And it's always nice to see them get out of that trap. But my agreement or disagreement with whether people should use it or not, and whether it's right for them. And there are people who are absolutely right for, and I'm not just talking medically, I'm talking just in personal experience. It's right for them to do it. It doesn't matter whether I'm okay with it or not. Restricting anything is problematic. Pro freedom, baby. I had a question on here. Am I a fan of Stefan Molyneux? Favorite YouTubers for political commentary? I used to watch a lot of Stefan Molyneux. I've noticed he has some biases that I can't get around. He has a bias against mothers, and he tends to relate everything back to mothers. And he may be right on a lot of it. I don't know that he's right on all of it. And in any case, I think he goes there too easily. But that's not to say that he's not a decent thinker. He's very articulate, and I think he raises interesting questions, if nothing else. And I do like his Truth About series. even if his Truth About series is biased, or not, and I'm not saying it is, but even if it is, it provides a nice foil or counter argument or counter narrative to these titans of history, and I think that counter narrative is important for people to have. Whether it's 100% correct or not isn't really the issue. Like I said, we need to question just about everything. Which kid is my favorite? Whichever one is not bothering me at the moment. Let's see. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard are pretty good. Would recommend them. $10 says Nick is a massive Depeche Mode fan, as I am, as everyone should be, because Depeche Mode, also The Cure. I'm not opposed to Depeche Mode and The Cure, but they're not my listening list. Was Joe Biden the dumbest vice president of all time? You know, he's either the dumbest or the smartest. Well, no, he's the dumbest vice president of all time because he's the one vice president who definitely should have converted his vice presidency into a presidential run, because he would have mopped the floor with Hillary and Bernie, and he probably would have won against Trump. Like, if we're being honest about Joe Biden's popularity versus Trump's negative popularity, anyone other than Clinton would have really, really been dangerous for Trump. And I think Joe might have won because Joe Biden can get away with saying racist, ableist, horrific things when no one else can. And I mean, I don't care. I don't care about those things. People can say what they want, right? But the fact that he gets away with it is just great. Okay. I really got to wrap it up. Was it Bill Cosby who made me eat the Jell-O? Yeah. You got me. It was. Wasn't homeschooling one of Maddox's problems and the biggest problem in the universe? Yes. And I implore you to go on to the forums and check out my arguments for homeschooling and shutting down every argument of Dick's. Or not Dick's, Maddox's. I was actually surprised that Dick came down more on the side of the argument that I would for homeschooling, because I thought he would be opposed to it. And he really wasn't, but Maddox was. And yes, please go look it up. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure I hammered the shit out of Maddox in the comments on that one. Because, gosh, he's so stupid. Leon, I could do a British accent for you, mate, if that's what you're looking for. I don't know if it helps you finish. I could do it all day, baby. What Patreon tier gets you to come to my birthday? We got about a month. Buddy, it depends on the date. I don't know. All right, guys. I love you all. I'm going to close out this chat. And, hey, what's up, Cash? You're coming in right as I'm closing this thing out. It's been 2 hours and 18 minutes of fun. I'm going to let this thing... You're awful, Leon. I'm gonna close this thing out, and we'll do this another time. But thanks for joining me. We're gonna do some more of these live chats, and for the record, the Patreon, I think it's currently the $10 plus tier, and we're gonna see how that goes. Is gonna have live streaming chats at least bi-weekly on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Central. I will be in my work office streaming from there. We're going to see how the internet holds up there. It should have about the same upload that I do here, so it should be about the same. But we're going to do live chat sessions, and they're going to be really informal, just hangout style, 2 p.m. Central Time on Wednesdays. Hopefully we can make it to that. Right now it's $10 Patreon. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to be through YouTube or Discord yet. I have until Wednesday to figure that out, but I'm going to have someone help me manage the chat if I can. But love you guys. Have a good night. Drink your whiskey, except probably not as much as me, because like ETA to Reno